Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, here today with some pretty crazy news that came up over the weekend. There are rumors and a very real possibility that the Harry Potter franchise is going to be rebooted. And I want to talk about what that actually means for us as writers. So, welcome to Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And this particular bit of news and rumor mongering comes to us from Valiant Renegade on his channel, Valiant Renegade, and his good friend and sometimes co-host WDW Pro, an insider within the entertainment establishment. These two recently did a video, which I will link in the description, about this particular rumor. I don't know any more about this than they do, and it feels kind of silly on a channel for novice writers talking about a rumor that another channel's been doing. However, the moment that I heard this got my writer's brain churning and thinking about, what does this actually mean for us right here as authors? Let's take a moment and think about this right here. The Harry Potter franchise came to define a generation. My generation. I was coming out of elementary school as the books were being published. I can't ever say really I was coming out of it. I remember, what was it, 4th or 5th grade, sitting down, listening to a teacher reading The Sorcerer's Stone. And I actually got sick and I missed a good chunk of the book that the teachers were reading. So when I came back, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Whatever happened to this kid named Dudley? And who on earth are Ron and Hermione? I had no idea what was going on. This is also back when no one knew actually how to pronounce Hermione's name. So everyone had their own way of saying it, like Hermione, Hermine, Hermione, all kinds of things. But I grew up from elementary school all the way going into college with the Harry Potter franchise. Staying up late to go and see the movies opening night, going and getting the books right as they came out of the boxes over at Barnes & Noble and at Walmart. I was there with a crush of people. I was even there for a stampede that was started when the 7th book was released, and someone back in the back of the store shouted out, "Dumbledore dies!" People were so freaked out about not getting spoilers that they forgot in the moment that Dumbledore was already dead, and so there was this massive stampede to the back of the store to beat up whoever had shouted out, "Dumbledore dies" at the end. I was there for all of that. Harry Potter really came to define a generation. It unlocked people's imagination. It was this great story that so many people got caught up in. Now then, since then, especially here at Camille's Harem, in a lot of our private conversations, we have discussed the merits and also the problems within the Harry Potter series. It's definitely not the best written series of all time. There's a lot of different problems. There's also a lot of possibilities and avenues that could have been taken within the books that weren't. My sister especially hates JK Rowling for a lot of the characters that were killed off, in her opinion, rather needlessly, and I have to say I kind of agree. There are definitely problems with the Harry Potter franchise, and I'm not even going to touch all of the disagreements and whatnot regarding JK Rowling herself. That's getting into politics, and here on Camille's Harem, we only care about fictional politics, thank you very much. But coming back to it, Harry Potter defined a generation. It brought so many people into the realms of reading, and we should at least be grateful for that there's so many people who picked up all of these books, read them, and became ultimately better people for it. I mean, yeah, there's some Harry Potter nut jobs out there, but that's the vast minority, like, in comparison to the rest of the fan base or even the rest of the global population. But so many people were brought into this world of wizardry and witchcraft and just explored and enjoyed this amazing place that unlocked their own imaginations, their own desires for crazy fantasy adventures, and it unleashed a brand new wave of young adult fiction. And so Harry Potter's a big deal. Now then, it's been finished. JK Rowling finished the series. We have read the books, we've seen the movies, we're moving on. The Fantastic Beasts series is a great idea in theory, and I really do enjoy the first movie. But everything else then has kind of tripped and landed on its face. JK Rowling seems to have lost whatever magic allowed her to write 7 great books and a bunch of filler fluff and details about the wizarding world. When it comes to actually continuing the series or setting up a decent prequel, she has completely fallen apart. And this has led me to kind of my very first thought on all of this. Authors tend to be typecasted. In fact, actually, this is something that is encouraged within the world of traditional publishing. As an author, you are supposed to be known for one genre. You are supposed to be known for a flagship book or a flagship series. Sure, you can write other stuff, but that's the stuff that you write for fun. No, you are locked in. For JK Rowling, you are locked into Harry Potter. For Brandon Sanderson, you are locked into Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive. Even though he's written all these other books, no, you are only going to be known for this. And even like for Neil Gaiman has written tons of stuff. But for certain people, it's like, no, you are the guy who did Sandman. That's you. There's so many other things that Neil Gaiman has written, but it's always Sandman. That's always what I hear. And that was before the Netflix series. George R. Martin has written plenty of books, but he will only ever be remembered for Game of Thrones, for A Song of Ice and Fire, which he will never finish. And then you have Professor Tolkien, you have the granddaddy of fantasy. Obviously, he will always be known for Lord of the Rings. The guy who wrote the dictionary, for crying out loud. This guy did so many other things, but he will always be remembered for the Lord of the Rings. That was where people have typecasted him, and I mean, he kind of fell victim more to that than really anyone else. For everyone else who went into traditional publishing, they have been locked into a flagship story or a flagship series, and the list goes on. You can bring up almost any author, and they've either been wedded to just one idea, or whenever they try to branch out beyond that one thing that they are most known for, they are either forgotten or they fail miserably. Now then, I feel like there's two big reasons for this. Number one, publishers want to make money. They are in the business of making money. They actually do not care how awesome your story is beyond the fact that it will make them money. And so you are encouraged as an author to stick with the most awesome idea that you have and only do that. You're basically forced to put on blinders and have tunnel vision. And that's a real problem because that curbs your ability to be creative. Now, there are some authors who have broken out of that, and there's some authors who've worked around that in various ways, either by having little side gigs of writing, working through pseudonyms, or they've been like, no, I'm going to break the chains and I'm going to do other stuff. But this then leads actually to the second thing, that ultimately, just as the publishers are for the money, most authors need to feed themselves. And so, well, they go where the money is at. And you always have those authors who pursue various goals and visions, ideas, and they will write them, they will pursue them, they'll do amazing things with them. And yeah, they'll make some money, but for the vast majority of authors, it's very, very hard to do that. So the realities of money cause a lot of authors to put on blinders. And the moment that you put on blinders, you cut yourself off from the vastness of your own imagination, and you restrict yourself from really being the creative individual that you could be. When people talk about Hollywood and its lack of originality and imagination, it's because they just continuously chase the biggest paycheck. If people were willing to take smaller paychecks, then yeah, you could actually get far more creative. But people have to eat. People have families they gotta take care of. And that tends to lead people towards looking to the big bucks. And if you watch the video from Valiant Renegade, that's actually one of the things that they bring up, that Warner Brothers is sitting on a massive cash cow. Harry Potter generates tons of money, but it's not creating any more new movies that are actually bringing in the big bucks. It's got a really great, it's got some really great stores, it's got some great theme parks and attractions, it's got video games, but they need the movies to keep all of that alive and constantly bring in more people because JK Rowling is not writing the way that she should be. Now then, this actually got me thinking a little bit right here. there are so many authors out there who have tried to branch out and do some really great things with their other ideas. I will point to Neil Gaiman, to Brandon Sanderson, to Stephen King, to Brandon Mull, as authors that I know who are actually very successful at doing a whole bunch of other ideas and making them work. And even if they don't make a bunch of money, they're all like, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, I'm going to do what I want, and I really want to write this story, so I'm going to write it, okay? Not every author is in the position to do that or has the willpower to do that, but another thing that I've come to realize as I've been thinking about this announcement all weekend long is that there's some authors who find themselves kind of incapable of doing that. I look, for instance, over at Stephanie Meyer. We can rant and rave about how the Twilight Saga is really not that grandiose of a story. It's really kind of bland. But it was very popular for a time and made lots of money. Stephanie Meyer's tried to branch out and do other stories, none of which have been as popular as well received. In fact, people began to realize, oh, she's actually maybe not that strong of an author. And so she loses clout and credibility, and she quickly runs back to Twilight and tries to stay in that nice, comfortable Twilight realm in order to make money. The same thing has gone on for JK Rowling. The same thing has gone for George R. R. Martin. Why does he spend all of his time with the Song of Ice and Fire? It's because that's the one series that he's written that's actually made him lots of money. But in the cases of people like J.K. Rowling, Stephanie Meyer, and so many other authors out there, where have the creative juices gone? Where's been that beautiful mojo? Well, I mean, the cynic might say, well, those stories weren't all that great to begin with, and it just comes to show that when the razzle-dazzle of an amazing logo or franchise is taken away, that these authors just suck. Now then, that might be true in some cases, but I don't want to focus on that because that's a negative way of viewing the world and viewing the craft that actually doesn't help people out. Problem is that we have a lot of creatives out there who are staying in the kiddie pond when they should be jumping into the pool and preparing themselves to swim the vast oceans of their own imagination. How do you help them get out of that? I think that the solution is very similar to how you overcome writer's block, because ultimately what is preventing you from transitioning from one massive franchise onto the next, or from this massive story that you've been dealing so long with, JK Rowling, and going on to the next big thing, is your own fear. And basically, a higher form of writer's block. This is what has paralyzed Hollywood. We say it's a lack of creativity and imagination, but if you actually pay attention to the vast variety of movies and stories that are being thrown out there by Hollywood, it's actually very clear that there's a lot of creatives still within the industry. However, the fish aren't biting. There's nothing big that really wows us anymore, except a return to franchise. And I love how in the movie La La Land, they actually put in a line that fully exposes this. That Hollywood, again, chasing the big bucks is all about franchise, rather than chasing something new and fresh, which La La Land captured so many people's attention and imagination because it was something fresh, imaginative, and new, and it was thrown out there and done really, really well. What we need to do is this: in order to overcome this higher barrier of writer's block and truly get out of the kiddie pond, get into the main pool, get into the Olympic-sized pool, and get ourselves ready to swim in the ocean, is that we need to return to asking ourselves serious questions about really anything. One of the craziest ideas that I've ever come up with for a story, I haven't written it, and I've kind of wanted to write it, was, do the ants in the backyard ever meet up with the ants in the front yard? I mean, when ants meet, it's all out war, but I was like, what happens? Ants are tiny. They have to go pretty far in order to get their food and their supplies. Around my house, it's a pretty long journey to get from the front yard to the backyard and vice versa if you're a bug. So what would that journey be like? And so I actually spent some time following the ants in my backyard, wondering, where's that ant going? Why is that ant going there? And once I came up with some answers and I was able to observe things and just see this world that's just right under my feet, I then began wondering, what if there were little miniature people, like very, very small brownies, running around using these ants as pack animals? What would that be like? And I was like, oh, that would be cool. Well, what would their society look like? Oh, what if they used dying tree in my backyard as like a city. Oh my gosh, there's like a dying city in my backyard full of little tiny brownie people that use bugs as pack animals. Well, what are they going to do about this dying city? Is there some sort of hero that's going to save them all? Are they going to have to leave and go on a grand exodus, maybe to the front yard? Could there possibly be a romance between like the king of this dying city and this dying tree in my backyard, between the queen or the princess that's in the flower bed of my front yard? And just asking myself those questions led to an incredible story being developed. And this wasn't something that just popped into my head. I was just asking myself a question about the ants in my backyard and the ants in my front yard. Another question I asked myself that led me down a completely new avenue and led to another story is, what if as a kid I went down the wash that my parents always told me not to? I went back to my childhood neighborhood and I walked down as an adult that wash that I was not supposed to. And I saw a bunch of things. I mean, it's all a bunch of mundane stuff in the back of a wash, but I was like, young Lars, how would young Lars have seen this with his overactive imagination? And this led to some interesting questions that led to a fun little story being developed of what would it be like if a kid went into this wash and got lost in another world? Or what if a kid grown up comes back home with their buddies and goes to a place that was supposed to be familiar, but then realizes that there was something always under their nose as a kid that they never quite realized, and this would then explain all of these weird little things that happened when they were children and teenagers. Things like that open up all different kinds of possibilities to create new stories. And that is what Hollywood and what a lot of writers need to do. Ask questions. Ask questions that could lead to whole new stories. Now then, that does run up against the ever-present question of how on earth will Hollywood ever become more creative and actually do something interesting right here? What about Harry Potter? Well, again, coming back to what Valiant, Renegade, and WDW Pro talked about, I actually do like the idea of, if you want to keep this franchise evergreen, what if you actually focused on the life of Harry Potter as an adult? Sure, there's a whole play about his kid, but I actually care more about Harry. Wait a second. What if more Muggle-born begin to say, hey, you know what? The wizarding world could really benefit the world of the Muggles. We, as the wizards, are going to bring the wizarding world to benefit the Muggles. Not to conquer it, like all of the Dark Wizards want, but we actually want to merge our worlds together for everyone's benefit. It's a great idea. Oh wait, that's against the law. What kinds of things will happen there? The upcoming Harry Potter video game is supposed to take place way in the past, and we get to see the legacies of the different houses. What about Slytherin House? Slytherin House always gets the short end of the stick. One of the things that I say that JK Rowling could have really done something with is, what if back in the 5th book for Dumbledore's army, what if one Slytherin had actually come to Dumbledore's army because they wanted to pass Defense Against the Dark Arts and actually learn some really cool spells. They swallow their pride, they hang out with Harry and the others, and then when they get betrayed, everyone thinks it's the Slytherin, but no, it actually turned out to be Cho's friend. Whoa! Oh, we completely misunderstood this one Slytherin. And you could have given that Slytherin, this nameless Slytherin, either a chance to do something really cool then in book 7, maybe die heroically, or save people heroically, showing that people within Slytherin House actually have good qualities. That there's no such thing as a house full of villains. Because what she did with Draco Malfoy, I liked. However, the thing is that it makes Draco seem like an absolute anomaly, and that this honestly shouldn't happen because Slytherin House is full of a bunch of nut jobs. No, there are supposed to be good Slytherins, so show us that. And those are things that can be done to keep Harry Potter fresh and vibrant. But in terms of actually doing new stuff with new stories, remember, Harry Potter opened up the doors wide for a whole bunch of other authors to do great stuff. Why not let those stories also now have their day? I know that we're eventually going to get, like, was it the Throne of Thorns and Broken Glass and whatnot? I'm not sure I'm not sure if I'm ready for that series. But I would like to see Scythe developed for the big screen or for a Netflix series or something like that, because that would be really cool. I mean, I would really like it if one of my stories got picked up. Hey, I was inspired by Harry Potter. I've got some great stories, Hollywood, that you should go check out. But the thing is that the doors have already been thrown open. There are authors who have already asked themselves these questions and have led themselves down wondrous paths to their own stories. What we need to do is we need to find those people and give them a chance to have their stories go out to the rest of the world. And what we novice authors need to do is we need to be continuously asking ourselves questions that lead to new stories. And here's the thing I'm going to say. Even though the entire industry is built to basically force you to create a franchise, a profitable franchise, you should never just tether yourself to one given story. Let your imagination flow free. Come up with a bunch of other stories, even if they're stories that you never write. Always be creating. Always be asking questions. Always be exploring your own imagination. And that way, when the time comes, you will be able to do some pretty amazing things and not just be tethered to one flagship series. And that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about being a self-published author. Yes, there's a whole lot of problems that come with it. There's a whole lot of frustration, but I get to write what I want to write, and it is fun. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts that have come out of this particular revelation about the potential Harry Potter reboot. Will it happen? I don't know. Tell me your thoughts down in the comment section below about what you think is going to happen with the Harry Potter franchise. Is it already bled dry? Are there new things that can be done? Or what are the fresh new stories that should be explored in order to get Hollywood out of this rut of being stuck in the same few franchises, so that way we can get some good, fresh stories out there and hopefully once again revitalize the collective imaginations and inspiration of the world populace. So, with all that being said, if you are a novice author looking to hone your craft, we have plenty of other videos here on our channel for you to check out, but especially head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works, to get some good insight, to get some fantastic advice from the entire writing group, Camille's Harem. And you can also head on over to our Pinterest page, where you can then find various exercises and challenges to, again, hone your writing craft. And of course, we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. Links for all that and more are in the description below. And please, if you would like to support us, please like, comment, subscribe, share, but even more importantly, check out the books that we've published. I will have links for all of those books in the description below. They are fantastic. They are worth the read. They will take you to places that you haven't yet imagined, with characters who you are going to love. I highly recommend all of them. But otherwise, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.